Okay, so I have three articles for you today, two of which cover the same incident, just two different news sources. But I wanted to start with the horribleness that's happening in Gaza because I realize that there are people out there who associate Gaza with Hamas. Everybody in Gaza happens to belong to Hamas. And they don't think much of it because, that would require, thinking. So, I found out about this story, which is just, I'm sure you've seen the images out of Gaza of babies and children literally starving to death. Heck, government aid workers are starving. Those that are in Gaza. It is just horribleness upon horribleness upon horribleness. And I cannot imagine the people who think that Hamas and Gaza are synonymous, how they justify it's okay to starve babies to death. Because even if what you said is true, how are the babies guilty of this? They didn't vote for Hamas. Actually, not many people who are living in the Gaza Strip today had voted for Hamas because most of them weren't even alive during the last election because Hamas took over and stopped having those. Anyway, let's get to the article. This is from Yahoo News, but by way of The Independent, or I should say vice versa. It's from The Independent by way of Yahoo News. I'll get my directions right. British doctor in Gaza says colleagues stopped from taking baby formula into the hospital. Now, okay, I get that Israel is deathly afraid of anything that could be considered a weapon from going in. It's sort of like how you can only take, so many liquids onto an airplane in the U.S. At some point, you're like, how does this work? However, I just do not see where taking baby formula is seen as a weapon. Unless, Israel actually doesn't want babies to be fed, that they want everybody in Gaza to starve to death, which, that's what Netanyahu seems to be doing in his far-right government. Anyway, to the article. A British doctor who has worked in Gaza has said that his colleagues have been prevented from taking baby formula into hospitals. Professor Nick Maynard, a volunteer surgeon at Nasser Hospital, told Good Morning Britain on Friday that he had seen appalling malnutrition. And at least on CBS News, they showed pictures of that malnutrition. It's just so hard to watch. If you go through a checkpoint, you get searched as a doctor, and if you got any baby formula in your pockets or in your bag, Israeli officials will confiscate it from you. I just can't imagine why. A legit reason, not we want babies to starve to death. It comes as the United Nations Palestinian Refugee Agency, or UNRWA, said 1 in 5 children in Gaza is malnourished and cases are increasing. Israel, which controls the entry and exit of all supplies into Gaza, has denied besieging the territory and blames Hamas for starvation in the enclave. You know, I get that Hamas is probably, a propaganda, that they claim things that aren't true. I understand that. But there are people on the ground, like this British doctor. There are people in the area. It's not like, even if you didn't trust Palestinian journalists to properly report on what's happening in Gaza, even if that were the case, you have literal foreigners who are saying this. I mean, at what point can we stop assuming that everything that Israel says is right and everything Hamas says is wrong, and admit that sometimes Hamas tells the truth and sometimes Israel does not? Because in order for people to continue to believe what comes out of the Israeli government and ignore what comes out of Gaza, is just simply, at this point, based on the images we've seen, at this point, all I can say is you have to willfully choose to believe everything Israel says, and that you just cannot accept, because you do not want to see yourself as a bad person. You have to pretzel your brain to try to claim that what you're saying isn't what you're saying. Because if you did, you'd have to admit that you don't give a shit and that you're not actually the good person you think you are. Because this government is not filled with good people. These are people who want to destroy Hamas. They want to, which is fine, but they want to destroy Gaza as well. They don't give a shit. They don't see a distinction between Palestine and Gaza. They don't see a difference between Palestine and Hamas. They see them as one and the same. And, that's why they liked Trump's idea of turning Gaza into the Riviera of the Middle East. Because they knew that meant that get rid of all the Gazans. Trump, for all his brain is pickled, seems to think that there's something inherently wrong with Gaza, with the Gazans, with the Palestinians, that somehow, because they just have bad luck or something, so they should just try somewhere else. It doesn't occur to him that there is a reason why they're suffering. So, yeah, that's just, I just can't imagine anyone at this point not turning on the Israeli government, because Israelis have turned on their government a long time ago. How can you look at these images of starving children, some who need medical intervention, actually quite a few probably need medical intervention, that whatever food they're given at this point won't catch them up because they are that malnourished? I mean, how can you look at that and still think Israel is in the right? And before I get the nasty comments, which I know I'm going to get, at least one, no, I am not anti-Israeli. I'm not anti-Israeli. I'm not anti-Jew. That is not the same as saying that this government needs to change. Netanyahu needs to continue to do this, needs to continue to bombard Gaza, simply because he knows that the minute the war is over, he is going to be put on trial for corruption. And they have him dead to rights, so he is going to be sent to jail. And so the only way is to hold on to power as long as he can. And the only way to do that is to continue this war, because you can't get rid of Netanyahu otherwise before the war is over. Or at least that's what comes into his head. So he has a very selfish reason to continue the war. Now, granted, Trump suggested that they just drop the charges against him. And who knows? Maybe if the charges were dropped, he'd be more willing to, end the war, actually have a ceasefire that brings back the hostages. That's the other thing. If you are starving Gazans, even if you don't give a shit about the Gazans themselves, even if you don't care about the babies, which, like I said, doesn't speak highly of you. But even if you didn't care about any Gazan, any baby whatsoever, there are still hostages in there. So you're not just starving the Gazans. You're not just starving the aid workers who are working in Gaza. You are starving the very people, the hostages that you claim that you are trying to help. Now, last I heard, there were still living hostages in Gaza. I could be wrong, but last I heard, there's still living hostages. How is starving them to death helping anybody? Oh yeah, we're going to get your loved ones back, just in a body bag. How is this helpful? Seriously, you're basically saying we hate Gazans, we hate Palestine so much that we are willing to sacrifice your loved ones just so we can just clear cut Gaza, so we can just make it a part of Israel proper and screw the two-state solution. We want just one state, and that is Israel. I mean, Netanyahu has mentioned on many occasions that he does not want a two-state solution. This is not something that people are making up. He literally said that. So, yeah. Just not a good deal. It's like he claims, whenever it's Holocaust Day, he talks about the persecution of the Jews and how he, never wants another Holocaust, never forget, that type of thing. Which is true. You shouldn't forget the Holocaust. But at the same time, what the fuck is he doing here if he's not perpetuating a genocide? So he claims that he doesn't want another Holocaust. But what he means is he doesn't want another Jewish Holocaust. He doesn't care whether Palestinians die. He doesn't give a shit. That's his mortal enemy. He wants all of Palestine to become Israel. And that just, the fact that so many people can't get that is just frightening. Because that, he admits it. He has said this on occasion that this is what he wants. I don't know why people refuse to accept it when it comes from his own mouth. And I'm not talking about Trump supporters because, well, we know they don't believe whatever comes out of their savior's mouth that they don't like because, they just want to believe the good things. Hopefully Epstein is finally the thing that brings him down, but whatever. Netanyahu has to go away. He has to leave. We have to get him out. So, yeah. Anyway, that is all I have for that article. So, like I said, I have two articles that talk about the same incident, and that is a U.S. citizen being harassed and arrested by ICE. And not just that he was arrested, but the way they treated everybody in that car, just simply for the crime of being brown. Because there was at least one undocumented worker in this car. But everyone got treated the same. So that's great. Anyway, this first article is from the Palm Beach Post. Video arrest. I'm not going to show the video. 5 things to know about the U.S. citizen in ICE custody in Palm Beach County. All right. Did I not make this bigger? Or am I going blind? Nope. Didn't make this bigger. All right. Oh, come on. Where are you? Kenny Lainez's cell phone camera captured every undocumented immigrant's nightmare on video when it happened to him on the morning of May 2nd. One problem, he is a U.S. citizen. Here's more to know about what happened. So, Kenny Lainez, a U.S. citizen, was driving with his mother and co-workers to their landscaping jobs when they were pulled over on Singer Island by Florida Highway Patrol and Border Patrol agents. Officers dragged them from the car, grabbing necks, twisting arms, using a taser, and later joked about raises and promotions. Because unlike what the head of ICE claims that, they have to hide their identities because they're getting death threats, and let's feel bad about those poor ICE agents that are being attacked and their families. And then they pull this shit. I'm sorry. No, they are happily being racist. They are not just doing their job. They are not just following orders, which, by the way, did not help any of the soldiers who claimed that during the Holocaust. All right. Lainez, who was born and raised in West Palm Beach, was held for 6 hours at a federal facility in Riviera Beach before being released. His mom, who's Guatemalan and has legal status in this country, was not detained. Fascinating, because she was also in the car. His co-workers were taken to the Chrome Detention Center in Miami and later released on bail. All right. But I just love it how this is headlined. U.S. citizen mistaken for illegal migrant. Was he, though? Anyway, the next headline reads, roughly 9 minutes of immigration stop, arrest in Palm Beach County filmed. I have rights. I was born and raised here, Lainez told the officers, according to a copy of the video shared by the Guatemalan Maya Center of Lake Worth Beach. You don't have any rights here. You are amigo, brother, said the officer who hurried him into a van. Migo is short for amigo, the Spanish word for friend, an apparent reference to Lainez's ethnicity. I'm sorry, what? Are you seriously saying that no Hispanic has any rights in this country? Because he was born and raised here, so probably not much of an accent. I mean, I've been around Hispanics who live in their own community, so they do have some accent. It's not like they don't have any Hispanic accent, but it's pretty mild compared to someone who just got off the, well, an old reference, but just got off the boat, so. Lainez filmed the entire encounter on his cell phone, refusing to hand it over during the arrest. Lainez recorded the entire encounter on his phone and refused to give it to officers during the arrest. Nearly 4 hours later, an officer brought him to a room and repeatedly asked for his date of birth, also his phone password. She told him she needed to check if he had filmed the arrest. Nothing says above board than wanting to make sure that the arrest was not filmed. Because if these goobers did nothing wrong, it wouldn't matter if this film gets out, right? Lainez said he unlocked and then locked the phone again without showing its contents. When he refused to reopen it, he said the officers threatened to press charges. He told the Palm Beach Post that the standoff ended when a supervisor walked in and told the officer Lainez shouldn't be there. He's a U.S. citizen. Not that it matters to these officers. I mean, it's great that there's at least someone in this office that isn't a fucking racist. But at the same time, if that supervisor didn't tell them to let him go, I don't think that they would have cared to just find out that this person is a U.S. citizen. Probably wouldn't have given a shit. Lainez's phone, which continued to record after falling to the sidewalk, also captured a 4-minute conversation between officers after his arrest. Once you got the proper spread on him, he was done, one officer said. "You're funny, bro." It was funny, an agent replied, following by laughter from others. "They're starting to resist now," another agent added. "We're going to end up shooting someone." An officer recounted how Lainez refused to open the door, quoting himself, "If you don't come out, I'll pull you out." "God damn, wow," another officer said. "Nice. Just remember you can smell too with a 30,000 bonus," someone added. It's unclear to what bonus they were referring. One officer said Lainez's coworker resisted arrest and should be charged. "He was being a dick," an agent said. "That's why we tased." At least I assume that because it's asterisked out. So I'm assuming dick, but that's technically not a swear word. So could be something else? I don't know. The recording ended when the phone ran out of storage. Officers later collected the device and other belongings during transport to the Riviera Beach Processing Center. All right. Once at the Riviera Beach facility, Lainez said he saw rows of men. Most spoke Spanish and wore construction clothes like his own. 2 looked like they were his age, 17 or 18. Lainez said he appeared to be the only one inside the packed room who spoke English. He said the men told them they had been detained for hours without water or food. Lainez wanted to use the bathroom, but the only toilet available was out in the open without any doors or cupboards. Okay, I do not care how much you hate brown people. Do you hate them so much that it's perfectly okay to treat them worse than animals? Because if this was discovered in any animal shelter or by any owner, done by any owner, there would be hell rising up. Lainez said he grew anxious and mad. He said he wondered whether it really mattered whether he was a U.S. citizen. And I would say no. No, it does not actually matter. Let's see. Yeah. That is all it's allowing me to read. It's not letting me go any further. So that's going to end on a cliffhanger. So let's move to The Guardian. And the headline, immigration agents told a teenage U.S. citizen, "You've got no rights." he secretly recorded his brutal arrest. Okay. On the morning of May 2nd, teenager Kenny Lainez Ambrosio was driving to his landscaping job in North Palm Beach with his mother and two male friends when they were pulled over by the Florida Highway Patrol. In one swift moment, a traffic stop turned into a violent arrest. A highway patrol officer asked everyone in the van to identify themselves, then called for backup. Officers with U.S. Border Patrol arrived on the scene. Video footage of the incident captured by Lainez Ambrosio, an 18-year-old U.S. citizen, appears to show a group of officers in tactical gear working together to violently detain the three men, two of whom are undocumented. They appear to use a stun gun on one man, put another in a chokehold, and can be heard telling Lainez Ambrosio, "You got no rights here. You're amigo, brother." Afterwards, agents can be heard bragging and making light of the arrest, calling the stun gun use funny, and quipping, "You can smell that $30,000 bonus." The footage has put fresh scrutiny on the harsh tactics used by U.S. law enforcement officials as the Trump administration sends ambitious enforcement targets to detain thousands of immigrants every day. The federal government has imposed quotas for the arrest of immigrants, said Jack Scarola, an attorney who is advocating on behalf of Lainez Ambrosio and working with the nonprofit Guatemalan Maya Center, which provided the footage to The Guardian. Anytime law enforcement is compelled to work towards a quota, it poses a significant risk to other rights. Exactly. I mean, just think how many people are annoyed about the speeding ticket quota. That they get pulled over simply because they have to meet their quota as opposed to you doing egregious speeding. And how annoyed you get with that. So why would this be any different? This is just screaming out that it's going to be abused, because officers are going to realize that they're not going to get that if they don't arrest more people, that they're going to lose. Probably that's why they would lose the $30,000 bonus. It's just so icky. The federal government has imposed quotas for the arrest of immigrants, said Jack Scarola. Okay, I read that already. The incident unfolded at roughly 9 a.m. when a highway patrol officer pulled over the company work van, driven by Lainez Ambrosio's mother, and discovered that she had a suspended license. Lainez Ambrosio said he is unsure why the van was pulled over, as his mother was driving below the speed limit. Lainez Ambrosio hadn't intended to film the interaction. He already had his phone out to show his mom a silly TikTok, he said, but immediately clicked record when it became clear what was happening. The video begins after the van has been pulled over and the Border Patrol had arrived. A female officer can be heard asking, in Spanish, whether anyone is in this country illegally. One of Lainez Ambrosio's friends answered that he is undocumented. That's when they said, "Okay, let's go," Lainez Ambrosio recalled. Okay, obviously your friend is a moron, because given the climate and the fear that all Hispanics feel, let alone those of the immigrant community, and especially those who are undocumented, why would you voluntarily say that you are undocumented? That you knew that wasn't going to end well. Lainez Ambrosio said things turned aggressive before the group even had a chance to exit the van. One of the officers put his hands inside the window, he said, popped the door open, grabbed my friend by the neck, and had him in a chokehold. Footage appears to show officers then reaching for Lainez Ambrosio and his other friend as Lainez Ambrosio can be heard protesting, "You can't grab me like that." Multiple officers can be seen pulling the other man from the van and telling him to put your fucking head down. The footage captures the sound of a stun gun as Lainez Ambrosio's friend cries out in pain and drops to the ground. So they're not even. So even though they were actually following orders, that was still not enough for these assholes. So yes, they have a quota to make, but at the same time, was any of this necessary? No, it was not. Even though one person said he's undocumented, that either means that you're all fucking dumbasses and assume that everybody in there is undocumented, which, if you hate Hispanics so much, it's surprising that one of the officers speaks Spanish. Why would you speak Spanish if that's supposed to be the language of the undocumented or whatever? Lainez Ambrosio said that his friend was not resisting and that he didn't speak English and didn't understand the officer's commands. "My friend didn't do anything before they grabbed him," he said. In the video, Lainez Ambrosio can be heard repeatedly telling his friend in Spanish to not resist. "I wasn't really worried about myself because I knew I was going to get out of the situation," he said. "But I was worried about him. I could speak up for him, but not fight back, because I would have made the situation worse." Lainez Ambrosio can be heard telling officers, "I was born and raised right here." Still, he was pushed to the ground and says that an officer aimed a stun gun at him. He was subsequently arrested and held in a cell at a Customs and Border Protection station for 6 hours. Audio in the video catches the unidentified officers debriefing and appearing to make light of the stun gun use. "You're funny, bro," one officer can be overheard saying to another, followed by laughter. Another officer says, "They're starting to resist more now," to which an officer replies, "We're going to end up shooting some of them." And I'm sure he was super giddy. Well, one of them was super giddy. Well, they were probably both super giddy to be able to claim that they shot in self-defense or something. Later in the footage, the officers move on to general celebration. "God damn, woo, nice," and talk of the potential bonus they'll be getting. Just remember, you can smell that inaudible $30,000 bonus. It is unclear what bonus they are referring to. Donald Trump's recent spending bill includes billions of additional dollars for ICE that could be spent on recruitment and retention tactics such as bonuses. Lainez Ambrosio said his two friends were eventually transferred to the Chrome Detention Center in Miami. He believes they were released on bail and are awaiting a court hearing, but said it has been difficult to stay in touch with them. Lainez Ambrosio's notice to appear in court confirms that the Border Patrol arrived on the scene, having been called in by the Highway Patrol. His other legal representative, Victoria Mesa Estrada, also confirmed that the Border Patrol officers transported the three men to the Border Patrol facility. The Florida Highway Patrol, CBP, and Immigration Customs Enforcement did not respond to requests for comment before publication. Gee, I can't imagine why. Lainez Ambrosio was charged with obstruction without violence and sentenced to 10 hours of community service and a 4-hour anger management course. Wait, because he wasn't lashing out? Huh? While in detention, he said police threatened him with charges if he did not delete the video footage from his phone, but he refused. Scarola, his lawyer, said the charges were retaliation for filming the incident. Kenny was charged with filming and was alleged to have interfered with the activities of law enforcement, he explained, but there was no intended interference, merely the exercise of a right to record that was happening. Because, again, nothing says we did everything above board and we're not racist fucks, then delete the footage of the arrest, and if not, we're going to charge you and treat you like scum. Yeah, absolutely nothing wrong there. Everything above board. Can't find fault with anything. In February, Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis signed an agreement between the state and the Department of Homeland Security, allowing Florida Highway Patrol troopers to be trained and approved by ICE to arrest and detain immigrants. While such agreements have been inked across the U.S., Florida has the largest concentration of these deals. Probably because they have the most immigrants, is my thought. Father Frank O'Laughlin, founder and executive director of the Guatemalan Maya Center, the Advocates for Lainez Ambrosio, said the incident has further eroded trust between Florida's immigrant community and the police. This is a story about the corruption of law enforcement by MAGA and the brutality of state and federal troopers, formerly public servants, towards nonviolent people, he said. Exactly, because you cannot tell me that these are non-racist people who are just doing their jobs. No, they're relishing harming brown people. And like this kid said, I don't think that they cared. It's not that they didn't believe him. They just didn't care that he was actually a U.S. citizen. I just do not know why they didn't detain the mother. I mean, not that I wanted them to, but it's just interesting. Maybe sexism is working for her? I don't know. Meanwhile, Lainez Ambrosio is trying to recover from the ordeal and hopes the footage raises awareness of how immigrants are being treated in the U.S. It didn't need to go down like that. If they knew that my people were undocumented, they could have just kindly taken them out of the car and arrested them, he said. It hurt me bad to see my friends like that, because they are just good people trying to earn an honest living. The Guardian is granting anonymity to Lainez Ambrosio's mother and the men arrested in the footage to protect their privacy. That's good to know. So if we looked at the footage, we probably would have had blurred faces, which is fine. Okay. So that is the end of that article. And it's just, like I said in yesterday's video, we are totally becoming that country. The country that other countries warn their citizens about going to, and if they happen to overstay their visa, that deportation proceedings, that they basically are being granted a waiver so they can stay in that country longer, simply because it's just too dangerous for them to come back here. We used to be the country that just pointed to other countries and was like, I cannot believe, why don't they improve conditions? Why don't they do this? Why don't they do that? And now we've become that country. It's just so sad to see that so many people who saw us as that shining beacon on a hill are now realizing that, no, we're just as much in the sewage as everybody else. There's nothing better in this country than anywhere else. We treat people like shit too. Anyway, I believe that is all I have for this video. So with that, I will see you guys in the next one.